Hey guys, Coach Chris here. This is the second video in our series on the basics of workout design. In the first video, we talked a little bit about fundamental movement patterns, and today we're going to talk about fundamental tasks. Okay, so these are some of the most basic tasks that you can perform with the human body. And you'll see some of your fundamental movement patterns expressed in these, and particularly the lunge step, isolateral lunge step, you're going to see expressed a lot in these tasks. I'll try to point out some of those as we go along. But we're going to break these into two basic categories, right? So our first category will be locomotive tasks. Locomotive tasks are tasks where you are focusing on moving your body through space, okay? And then the mechanical tasks are where you are focusing on moving external objects through space, all right? And you can hybridize these to create more complex tasks, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the video. But first, let's just go through the basic tasks themselves, okay? So first, in our locomotive category, we have run, jump, climb, and crawl, okay? We could also include walking in this if we wanted to, but for our purposes, we are going to focus more on tasks that you would include in a 30 to 60 minute workout routine, okay? And you'll see walking expressed a little bit in some of the mechanical tasks as well, but we're gonna leave that out as far as an independent locomotive task for our purposes today. So, starting off, we have running, all right? Running's pretty self-explanatory. For our incorporation of running into our workouts, we want to have a variety of running modalities. We want to have sprinting, we want to have middle distance running, we want to have longer distance running, because these all have different values, all right? Central nervous system activation, different metabolic impacts, different mechanical impacts. So if you're running 3 days a week, maybe one day you go out, you run some 40-yard sprints. Second day of the week that you run, maybe you go out and you do some 800-meter repeats with short rest in between. Third day of the week, you go out and you run 5 to 10K, something like that. Maybe just like a 30 to 40 minute relaxed paced run, right? Those all have value and they all have different value, and they're all important for a well-rounded workout regimen, okay? So the next category is jumping, okay? So jumping. Now for most of us in the CrossFit world, you know, when we think of jumping, we think of double unders, we think of box jumps, and those are great exercises, but they have certain limitations, right? The big one when we're talking about jumping with those exercises, it's that it's the same jump repeated over and over again, all right? So it's the same effort continuously, all right? So when we're talking about training jumping as a task, what we're really trying to focus on is improving our ability to jump. So increasing the effort that we can put forth. So if we're jumping on a box, we're talking about trying to be able to jump higher onto a higher box, okay? Or we could be doing a jump for distance, so like a broad jump, where we're trying to jump further from a standing broad jump, or a step start broad jump. You could do a triple jump if you want to try to do a slightly more fun or exotic form of the jump. But just different varieties of jumping. And I'm actually going to do a video on jumping and plyometrics a little bit later in this series, so we'll talk more about that at a later date, okay? The third category in locomotive is climbing, okay? So great CrossFit example of climbing would be rope climbs, pegboard climbs. You could even consider pull-ups or chin-ups as a crude form of climbing, but really when we talk about climbing, we want to get all the limbs involved, moving the body vertically up some sort of other object. You know, so you could go rock climbing, you could go out to a bouldering gym, you could go to one of the, like the Ninja Warrior gyms and do, you know, climb a cargo net, something like that. Go out in your backyard and climb a tree. Even if, you know, if you go hiking on a regular basis and you get to some steep rocky scramble where you're not just walking up the hill, but you got to get the arms involved there and grabbing for some holds so you don't fall and stumble, that's a form of climbing as well, okay? Now, moving on, crawling, the fourth category here. So crawling is, it's getting down on all fours, moving across the ground. So quite often we do bear crawls in warm-ups and workouts in the gym. Also, if you've ever done any sort of martial arts or wrestling, you probably did break falls or rolling practice to learn how to move around and keep control of your body on the ground. So that's something that you need to practice on a regular basis as well. All right, now moving on to our mechanical tasks. We have push, drag, carry, and throw. Now when we're talking about pushing in our mechanical tasks, we're talking about pushing a sled, pushing a wheelbarrow, pushing your car when your battery is dead or you're out of gas or something like that. Then dragging, which is just similar concept. We're dragging a sled or we're dragging an object across the ground. If you've done any like rescue training, you're dragging a body out of a building or something like that. Carrying is pretty self-explanatory. We're picking up a heavy object and carrying it somewhere. Now, any loaded movement could be considered as some sort of a carry, even something as similar or as simple as a back squat. Better example in the gym would probably be something like a weighted lunge, where we have, you know, dumbbells in the hands or a barbell on your back and you're lunging through space. That would be a type of carry that we do frequently in the gym. But you know, any kind of carry, pick up something as heavy as you can and carry it as far as you can, all right? And then throwing, all right? Now, with throwing, usually the closest we get to proper throwing in the CrossFit gym is wall balls or weightlifting, all right? And you're talking about cleans, snatches, jerks, stuff like that. And with those, we kind of get back to that same limitation that we fall into with jumping variations sometimes, where we're performing the same effort over and over and over again. So with that wall ball, you're throwing that ball to that same height target at the same velocity every time. All right, with a power clean or a jerk or something like that, again, you're moving that weight from and to the same positions over and over again. So that's the same effort, same velocity on the bar every time. So when we talk about throwing, what we're really trying to do is improve the velocity with which we can move an object, all right? So we're trying to throw that object as hard as we can or as far as we can. You could do that with a medicine ball, either, you know, throwing to a partner, or just throwing it against a wall. You know, throwing a ball, go out in the backyard, grab a rock, throw it as far as you can, try not to break anything. But when we're talking about training throwing, we're trying to throw, whatever we're throwing, we're trying to throw that as far or as hard as we possibly can. So we're training the velocity of the throw and not the weight of the object that we're throwing, okay? Now, as I said before, we can hybridize these to create more complex tasks. So a really easy example would be a combination of a run and a push, all right? So I take a sled and I load up a light to moderate weight on there, and I do a sled sprint. So I run as fast as I can while pushing that sled. Similarly, I could do a crawling drag, where I take that sled, put some sort of harness around my shoulders or my waist, and I do a bear crawl while dragging the sled. I could do a climbing carry, all right? So if you go back to our hiking example with the steep rocky scramble, so if I'm out backpacking, I've got a heavy backpack on with all my gear, my tent, and my clothes and everything, and then I come to that same rocky scramble. Now I'm doing a climbing carry. So, you know, if you guys like to do the ruck runs, stuff like that, that might be something you want to train and add to your training as well, as climbing carries. All right, so lots of different ways that you can combine these into more complex and more interesting tasks. So have fun with that, be creative, and I'll see you in the next video.